Owner's heartwarming decision to shelter homeless grandma child reveals incredible life-changing magic. In the heart of Maplewood, Stanley stood behind the counter of his sandwich shop, weary eyes surveying the dwindling customers. The holiday lights twinkling through the window felt distant, a world away from his harsh reality of unpaid bills and an uncertain future. Yet, he was determined. Each sandwich he served held bits of his dream, the American dream of providing for his young son, Max. Every wrap and roll was a silent prayer, a hope that the next customer would come through the door. As the biting winter winds howled outside, he spotted two familiar figures huddled against the glass of his shop, Miss Clara, an elderly woman with silver hair, and her vibrant granddaughter, Emma, barely 10 years old, clutching a faded teddy bear. A gut-wrenching ache pulled at his heart. How many times had he walked past people like them without a second thought? Remembering his own childhood struggles, warmth nudged him to act. "Come on in. Let me get you something warm," he called, that gentle invitation creating sparks of warmth in the cold night. As they settled at a table, Clara's lined face lit up with gratitude, breaking a smile that seemed etched into the very fabric of his spirit. He served them steaming sandwiches, their simple aroma floating through the air. They shared laughter, stories of winters long past, and Clara's wisdom, a lifetime condensed into moments of connection that painted Stanley's heart in shades of hope. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Clara's enduring spirit gave him new strength. Her tales of resilience spilled like hot soup on a cold day, nourishing the ache of his insecurities. She spoke of survival, of making do, of community love being the burning hearth in the home of every family. Stanley found himself captivated. It was nourishment beyond bread and meat. Then, one fateful afternoon, Clara's laughter faded as she received an eviction notice. It felt like a knife to the soul, the grim reality threatening the fragile haven they had built together. Panic ignited in the hearts of Maplewood's residents. Community members began to circulate a petition, voices rising like a collective heartbeat against a common injustice. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by courage and fire, Stanley organized a block party to rally support. The day arrived bright and hopeful, a sea of friendly faces lighting up the dusky sky. Clara stood beside him, laughter and energy flowing freely. They gathered not just for sandwiches, but for unity, real human connection. However, the joy took a somber turn when the city officials arrived, their expressions rigid, scanning the crowd, assessing motives with cold indifference. "Why are we here?" one demanded, cutting through the chatter. Stanley's heart raced. In that moment, everything he had ever fought for crystallized into a single, life-changing truth. Would he rise to challenge the indifference? Could he stand for Clara, for all those struggling to survive within the shadows? He stepped forward, voice shaking but unyielding, ready to shine a light on the truth. His pulse hammered as he confronted the reality that their destinies were intertwined, and the fight for Clara could ignite a beacon of hope for all. Would Maplewood answer the call for justice and compassion, or would they let it slip away, just like the warmth of summer? Stanley's voice cut through the tension like a knife through butter. "We're here for Clara. We're here for our community." The words spilled out, fueled by frustration and an urgent desire for fairness. The crowd behind him murmured, nodding their heads, their energy swelling, fueling his courage. The city official raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "You think a few sandwiches and some smiles are going to change anything? The law is the law. But it shouldn't be a law that tears families apart." Stanley challenged, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked into the crowd, eyes searching for support. He found Emma, her tiny frame trembling, clutching her teddy bear like it was her last tether to security. And then Clara, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, made a small step forward. Stanley, her voice, small yet resolute, made the moment swell with emotion. They may have the law, but we have something they can't take away: our hearts and our community. The crowd erupted around them, a wave of voices combining into a chorus of solidarity. We stand with Clara. We stand with Clara. Each cry echoed like a drum, beating against the cold morning air, igniting an unquenchable fire. From the corner of his eye, Stanley could see the city official's expression shift. There was a hint of discomfort, as if the sea of faces was becoming too much for him. "You're making a mistake here," the official warned, though the authority in his voice wavered like a flickering candle. "Let them take this away, and what do we have left?" Stanley replied, passion serving as a beacon of hope amid the cold reality. "This isn't just about Clara and Emma. This is about every person in this town who might need help someday. Will we let indifference divide us?" The crowd erupted in cheers, a tidal wave of voices proclaiming community over cruelty. Faces lit with determination. It was more than camaraderie. It was love, pure and simple, but in that moment of unity, a soft voice emerged from the back. "What about the shelter?" Someone questioned, uncertainty now creeping into the joyful air. The room hushed, eyes darting to Stanley as if he held the answer to everything. Stanley's heart sank. He thought of Miss Clara, who needed a roof over her head more than ever. But how could he help? His shop, the only thing he could claim as his, barely kept him afloat. Thinking quickly, he spoke. "We will figure it out together. Let us turn this shop into a place for hope. We can create a shelter here until we can find a real solution." The crowd erupted anew, some pulling Emma into their arms, others embracing Clara. It was a beautiful sight, but uncertainty knotted inside Stanley's stomach. How would he make it work? Would they really come together for Clara? His mind raced with possibilities, each more daunting than the last. As they formed a small committee of volunteers right there on the street, Stanley felt a glimmer of hope, even amidst the daunting task that lay ahead. But could their unity withstand the challenges to come? Would they rekindle the soul of Maplewood or fall apart when real obstacles emerged? The weight of their dreams rested heavy on his shoulders, and as he looked out at the cheering faces, he felt the pulse of something big beginning to awaken. Each heartbeat echoed a promise: change was coming, and it wasn't he backing down. Would this newfound support be enough to protect Clara and Emma? And what sacrifices would they all have to make for the sake of love and community? The answers lay ahead, shrouded in uncertainty. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over Maplewood as the crowd began to dissipate. Stanley stood at the front of his shop, still buzzing with adrenaline. The air was filled with hope, but there was a weight pressing down on him: the reality of what lay ahead. Clara and Emma lingered nearby, still embraced by the warmth of the people's energy. Emma had put down her teddy bear, a small act of bravery that sent a thrill through Stanley's heart. Clara's face was bright, yet the shadows of worry danced in her eyes. He approached them, determined to offer more than just words. "We'll work together. I promise," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Clara nodded, her smile faltering but hopeful, as if she were drawing strength from his commitment. Just then, a burly man stepped forward from the crowd. His name was Tom, a local carpenter well known for his broad shoulders and easy laugh. "You're serious about this, Stanley?" he asked, squinting in the sunlight. Stanley could sense the undercurrent of disbelief. "Turning your shop into a shelter? That's a big deal." Stanley inhaled deeply, straightening his posture. "It's a necessity, Tom. If Clara and Emma don't have a place, who will? We can help them." Tom scratched his chin, pondering the idea. "All right then. Count me in. I'm happy to lend a hand with building whatever we need." Just like that, Tom's support flicked a small spark of energy throughout the crowd again. "Let us get started," he called, turning to rally the others. "We'll need blankets, food, everything we can gather." The murmurs turned into excited chatter as people eagerly began proposing ideas, and just like that, the little shop transformed into a hub of action. As Stanley darted around, gathering supplies and organizing volunteers, he marveled at how quickly the community rallied. Neighbors who had only exchanged polite nods in the past now worked shoulder to shoulder, sharing resources and ideas. There was an electric sense of unity in the air, a distinct realization that they were stronger together, igniting Stanley's already buoyant spirit, but soon after, doubt slunk back into his mind. How would they manage to provide enough for everyone? Would this makeshift shelter really hold up under pressure? The questions flooded in. His stomach churned at the thought of disappointing Clara and Emma, and the responsibility of the community rested heavily on his shoulders. "Stanley!" Emma's eager voice pulled him back from his spiraling thoughts. She was wearing a wide grin, holding up a stack of homemade sandwiches. Clara stood by, pride filling her eyes as she watched her daughter take charge. "We can help too." Emma beamed, her enthusiasm contagious. "Of course you can. That's perfect," he replied, invigorated by her spirit. It reminded him why every effort mattered. They weren't just providing shelter, they were creating a sanctuary. As the hours passed, the shop transformed. A small corner had been cleared for sleeping bags and blankets, while another became a stark kitchen area brimming with donated food. The warmth of compassion and hope engulfed him, and even in silence, he could hear the laughter and chatter echoing through the walls. They had done it, created their first space for Clara and Emma. As they gathered to celebrate this milestone, Stanley took a deep breath, letting the weight of responsibility settle into a manageable rhythm. But just then, the sound of urgent footsteps echoed down the street, drawing their attention. A group of officers approached, their expressions steely and resolute. Stanley's heart dropped. Was this the moment everything unraveled? Would they be putting their efforts in jeopardy? His pulse quickened as he met the eyes of the officers, fear and determination clashing within him. Could he stand firm in the face of this potential conflict? What would happen to Clara and Emma now? The answers were looming dangerously close, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. As the officers reached them, Stanley was left standing on the brink of chaos, ready to defend what they had built. Would love and community triumph over the impending threat? The moment had arrived. This was just the beginning. Stanley watched as the officers closed in, their boots thudding against the pavement like a drumbeat echoing his racing heart. The jubilant atmosphere inside the shop was now tainted with a sense of foreboding. Clara squeezed Emma's hand tightly, her eyes wide with concern. Stanley felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. He wasn't about to let anyone take away what they had built together. "Officers, is there a problem?" Stanley called out, trying to steady his voice, but he could hear the slight tremor that betrayed his unease. The lead officer, a tall woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped forward. "Mr. Nelson?" she asked, her gaze piercing. "We received reports about a shelter being established here. You do understand that there are regulations regarding public shelters?" Stanley felt a fire ignite in his chest. "I understand the laws, but this isn't just a shelter. It's a community effort. People are in need." He gestured wildly at the flurry of activity behind him. Volunteers unloading bags of supplies carried the spirit of hope in their smiles. "Yes, and that spirit is commendable," the officer replied, her tone softening just slightly. "But you need permits for this type of operation. We have to ensure safety codes are followed. It's for everyone's protection." Stanley's heart sank. Safety codes. Permits. It felt as though a dam had broken, flooding in doubts he thought he had put to rest. What if they had to shut down? Clara and Emma wouldn't have a home. "We're trying to give them a chance," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "They deserve safety and support." The officer observed him, her expression shifting. "I see that you care deeply. But if you proceed without the proper channels, you may be putting yourself and them in danger. She paused, glancing back to her fellow officers, who shifted uncomfortably. So what do I do? Stanley pressed, leaning a little closer. If we delay to follow procedures, more people might suffer. We have to act now. The officer's mouth thinned. In the next few days, we can connect you to the right people in the city who can help facilitate this provided you shut it down until then. Frustration bubbled within him. Could they really just turn their back on what they had started? He glanced at Clara, who was watching the exchange with mounting concern. Her eyes flickered from him to the officers. Stanley took a deep breath. "All right," he said, his voice firmer now, ready to stand up for what he believed in. "But we can't just shut it down. You have to understand what's at stake here. If the community joins together and supports them now, we could change their lives." The officer seemed to consider this. "Listen," she said. "Tell your volunteers to stay calm. I won T report today, but you need to follow legal procedures. Invite those you trust. If you want to fight for this, I suggest you organize meetings with the local council." Hope flickered back to life inside Stanley, mixed with a rush of energy. "Thank you," he breathed, relief washing over him. Clara squeezed Emma's hand even tighter, visibly relaxing as the tension dissipated. As the officers turned to leave, the crowd around them stirred. Stanley felt emboldened by the conversation. He raised his voice above the murmurs, calling to the gathering. "Everyone. We might have some hurdles ahead, but we won't give up. We can turn this into a real sanctuary. Together, we will fight for what is right." Cheers erupted from the crowd, filling the air with renewed determination. It was a powerful moment, the kind that cemented a bond that could not be broken, but just as he was about to outline their next steps, a voice rang out from the back of the crowd. "What if they come back? What if they shut us down?" It was a woman, her face pale with fear. The question hung in the air for a moment, heavy with uncertainty. Stanley felt the weight of the community resting on him once more. Could they truly defend against the storm ahead? As voices of doubt echoed around him, he realized that this fight was only beginning. Would they have the strength to protect their vision? The answer would not come easy. And with that looming uncertainty, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was still ahead. Stanley stood at the center of the crowd, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. He could feel the tension, a mix of hope and dread, swirling around him. The cheers had faded, replaced now by murmurs of worry. Clara caught his eye, a silent plea for reassurance lingering in her gaze. "Listen up," he called, determined to regain their momentum. "I know it's scary, but we have something special here. We can't let fear dictate our next move. Look around. These people, this community need us." He gestured to the faces staring back at him, each one echoing a story of struggle and resilience. The fear from moments ago was still palpable. He knew the woman who had voiced her concern at the back. Sarah, a mother of two, had lost her job and faced the prospect of homelessness. Her hands trembled, and he realized all too clearly that her anxiety was shared. But what if they really come back? Someone shouted from the front. "What if they shut us down for good?" Stanley inhaled deeply, grounding himself. "We'll be ready," he reassured them, projecting confidence even while his mind raced. "If we stand together and start planning, we can create a case strong enough to show the city how important this is. The council needs to see how we're helping, not just rules and regulations." Clara stepped forward, joining him. "And we can bring in those who've been through similar battles," she suggested. "We need to collect stories, facts, testimonials. Show them what we're doing is right. It's not just about permits, it's about lives." A spark ignited in the crowd. Voices grew from whispers to determined discussions, individuals sharing their experiences, rallying around the idea that together they could make a strong argument. As different people spoke, Stanley felt his heart swell. Over the next hour, they formed a plan. Clara organized volunteers to gather testimonials, while others would reach out to local businesses for support and donations. The community had suddenly transformed from passive observers to active participants, but just as excitement surged, a shadow flickered across his heart. What if they gathered all these voices, only to be dismissed again? That fear kept lurking, creeping in when he was looking. The night came on quickly, darkness wrapping around the fading daylight. Stanley, Clara, and Emma stayed late, finishing up the first leg of their plans. The shop, once just a space for gathering supplies, now felt electric, buzzing with possibility. As they packed their things, Clara approached him, her brows slightly furrowed. "Stanley, do you really think we can pull this off?" He paused, trying to read her expression. "I want to believe we can," he said honestly, his voice low. "But we'll need to stay one step ahead. We need to be ready for anything." Suddenly, Emma tugged at Clara's sleeve, her small voice breaking through their serious conversation. "Mom, why don't we just take everyone inside the shop? Isn't it already safe?" Stanley knelt beside Emma, a smile creeping onto his face. "You're right, sweetheart. But we have to do it the right way. We need to make sure everyone understands that we're doing this to help, not just to hide someone away." Clara made the connection too, looking at him with new resolve. "What if we could arrange a community meeting? Bring everyone in, the officers, the council, the people we want to help. Show them what we're doing together." The idea sparkled like a light bulb, and Stanley felt his energy shift. They could make their voices louder, not just for their own community but for the lives they wished to protect. As they wrapped up their night's work, a stray thought drifted back to him. What would the authorities say? Would they see the community's strength? With that aching question echoing in his mind, Stanley locked the door behind them, uncertainty clawing at the edge of his optimism. How would they navigate the road ahead? And were they ready for the backlash that might come their way? As he turned to look at Clara and Emma, determination swelled within him again, fighting off shadows of doubt. But in that moment, as they stepped into the cool night air, he couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring more than just challenges. It would demand courage beyond anything they'd faced so far. Could they rise to that challenge? The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden hue over the town. Birds chirped a hopeful tune as Stanley arrived at the shop, the weight of anxiety settling onto his shoulders like a heavy coat. Today was the day, the community meeting. He looked around, spotting Clara at a nearby table, her hands busy sorting through papers. She glanced up, and her expression held the same mix of hope and fear he felt. "You ready?" she asked, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. "As ready as I'll ever be," he said, forcing a smile. Around them, the shop slowly filled with voices. People chatted, some clutching steaming cups of coffee, others exchanging nervous glances. Sarah was there, and he wondered how she was holding up. Would she share her story? He understood how vulnerable it felt to stand before their neighbors, let alone in front of city officials. As the chatter faded, he climbed onto a makeshift stage, a stack of boxes topped with an old wooden plank. "Thank you all for being here today," Stanley started, his voice rough but steadying. "This meeting is important. We're coming together for one reason, to show how much we care for each other and how this community makes a difference." His heart raced as he scanned the crowd. Faces filled with anticipation, but also trepidation. Clara stood beside him, her presence solid. "We'll share stories today, real stories from real people," she encouraged, her eyes bright. "We need to show that what's at stake isn't just a building or a permit, but lives. Lives that matter." Stanley nodded, and as Clara began reading the collected testimonials, the atmosphere shifted. Each story resonated like a drumbeat of shared struggles, laughter breaking through the tears. The crowd was enraptured as the tales unfolded, bringing the weight of their shared experience to life. Families, friendships, and fears intertwined, creating a tapestry of resilience. But just as emotions reached a peak, the door swung open. A group of city officials entered, a blend of authority and skepticism darkening the room. Up front, a tall man in a crisp suit surveyed the scene, an eyebrow raised as if questioning their sincerity. Stanley's stomach churned. Who's in charge here? The man demanded, his voice edged with impatience. Stanley took a breath and approached them, clearing his throat. I am, he said, his pulse thunderous in his ears. He gestured back to the group of people who had become like family to him. These are our stories. They matter. The official's gaze flicked from Stanley to the crowd, then back to him. You think sharing these stories will change anything? He challenged. Yes, Stanley replied, conviction surging within him. If we show you the heart of this community, you'll see it's worth protecting. It's not about rules, it's about the people who live here. As he spoke, he caught a glimpse of Sarah, her hands clenched but her chin lifted defiantly. The power of their united front was starting to transform the tension in the room. Whispers began to ripple through the audience, a pulse of agreement, energy flowing like an electric current. I want you to hear one more story, Clara said, stepping forward as if propelled by a force greater than fear. Sarah, can you come up here? Stanley felt a swell of pride as Sarah hesitated but then moved toward the front. He could almost see the transformation happening within her. She took the mic, her voice shaky yet full of determination. 2 months ago, I lost my job, Sarah began, glancing at the crowd and then back at the officials. I've been afraid, but I've also found strength. That's what this place represents for Maine hope. Hope for my children. Hope for our future. The room fell into silence, every person hanging on to her words. Stanley felt the gravity of that moment, the power of vulnerability. In it, he sensed that this might be their turning point. But would it be enough? He could see the city officials shifting uncomfortably, contemplating, and just then, as if sensing the growing resolve, the official's phone rang with a harsh buzz. He glanced at the screen, and the room held its breath. Excuse me, he muttered, retreating into the hallway. A tense quiet settled over the audience. Stanley felt a shift in the air, it felt as though the world around them had paused. What did he just see? He wondered silently. The moment was heavy, charged. Could it work? Would they truly find a way to protect the lives they fought for? The lingering sense of dread hung, but hope sparkled faintly, like a distant star amidst the darkness. What news might the man bring back? Would they finally see the heart of the community? The silence in the shop felt almost palpable, the air thick with anxiety and anticipation. Stanley glanced around, capturing the anxious faces of their neighbors. Clara stood still next to him, her gaze fixed on the door, the weight of the moment settling heavily on her shoulders. That heavy coat of anxiety seemed to be settling on everyone in the room. A few moments passed, stretching into an eternity. It was as if the world outside had forgotten them. The chatter of nearby coffee drinkers faded, replaced by small murmurs from the crowd, whispers of uncertainty. Stanley leaned forward, straining to hear footsteps in the hallway, wondering what decision might rest with the man in the crisp suit. Just when it felt like time itself was standing still, the door swung open again. The official re-entered, his expression unreadable, but tension radiated from him. Thank you for your patience, he said, his voice echoing in the charged atmosphere. Stanley's heart pounded. What did you find out? He called, unable to contain the question. The man sized up the room, as though weighing the emotional investment of everyone present. We have a proposal to discuss, he replied slowly, fighting against the push of impatience that threatened to spill out. But first, I need to hear more. I need the details behind what you've shown me today. The human angle. It felt like the crowd collectively exhaled, their breaths mingling in a lingering cloud of hope. Clara turned to Stanley, eyes gleaming. They want more stories. Let us do this, he replied, adrenaline surging through him. One by one, people started to step forward. In that moment, the shop transformed into a stage of truth. They shared their struggles openly, stories of loss punctuated by moments of kindness. A young father spoke of his need for a safe park for his daughter to play. A grandmother stood with tear-filled eyes and recounted the friendships she built at the community center. The stories piled on each other, building a crescendo of emotion that captured the essence of their shared lives. With each voice rising, the crowd seemed to expand, drawing strength from one another. Even Sarah found the courage to share more about her family, her children, her dreams, and the unwavering hope that drove her. Stanley felt the warmth of her spirit, igniting the room. As the testimonials continued, he noticed the official's posture changing. The skepticism in his eyes faded, replaced by a deepening understanding. Was he beginning to see the community's worth? Eventually, Clara stepped forward again, her voice powerful and commanding. This isn't just about us. It's about what we stand for together. We want to be part of the solution. We want to be included. Stanley barely recognized his own voice when he found himself pledging, "We are committed to keeping this community strong, to finding ways to honor and protect everything that makes it special." The city official nodded slowly, and a flicker of something like hope appeared in his gaze. "All right," he said, glancing sideways at his colleagues. "Let's talk about a possible compromise." The crowd erupted in whispered excitement. Stanley couldn't help but smile. He felt a flicker of a possibility shifting in the air, comparison slicing through despair like a beam of sunlight. But then, as realization began to dawn, a shadow crossed the official's face. "We'll need more evidence," he said, turning serious. "We need to know this isn't just a moment but a movement. The next step will require commitment beyond words." A chill ran through Stanley. He knew they were laying their hearts bare, but could this truly be enough? Would these stories translate into action? As the meeting continued, Stanley could feel the energy crackling around them, the possibility of change looming ever closer. But would their efforts hold up under scrutiny? As heartbeats raced, one question lingered: would they be able to turn this moment of hope into a lasting commitment, or would it simply fade like smoke in the wind? The weight of the community's dreams hung in the balance. Stanley rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the tension coil tighter as the official shifted in his chair. The room was thick with anticipation, everyone hanging on the edge of their seats. Clara's hand squeezed his, a silent promise of unity amidst uncertainty. "Evidence," the official repeated, his tone firm. "What can you demonstrate as a community to show this is more than just words?" Stanley watched as faces around him reflected a mix of hope and despair. This wasn't just about them anymore, it was about proving to the city that there was a force ready to stand up for their dreams, their homes. The stories they'd shared ignited a flicker of determination in him. Clara cleared her throat. "We can organize events, gather signatures, maybe even do community service projects that focus on our children and the elderly. Or we could spotlight our stories through social media," Sarah chimed in, her voice growing stronger. "People have grown attached to our little community. If they can see the heart behind the struggle they'll want to help." Stanley nodded, the rhythm of their collective bursts of ideas, a continuous ebb and flow. He began to picture them standing together, shoulder to shoulder, planting seeds of change throughout the city. He imagined flyers at local shops, children drawing posters, and adults telling their stories to anyone who would listen. "Let's create a community mural," Clara suggested, her eyes sparkling with inspiration. "Something that tells who we are, what we've been through, and where we hope to go." An enthusiastic murmur ran through the crowd. The buzz of excitement was infectious, lifting spirits that felt heavy moments before. Stanley stole a glance at the official. Would he see the energy igniting in the room? Would he recognize the shift from desperation to determination? Then, just like that, the official raised his hand to quiet the aspirations flowing like water. "All of this is wonderful, but it's important to have something concrete. I'm asking for a commitment, something we can take back to the city council," he said, his gaze steady. "A project that can stem from these stories and this energy." Clara's face fell for a brief moment before rallying. "We can make it happen," she declared, her voice cutting through the momentary gloom. "Let's set up a community meeting tomorrow. We'll bring in everyone, local businesses, parents, students, even those who felt disconnected. Stanley felt his pulse race. It was ambitious, but maybe that was exactly what they needed. A rallying point for us to show how invested we are in our community, he proposed. We can invite people from outside, too. This can become a movement. Then let us do it. Shouted someone from the back, igniting a movement, a fervor of agreement that rippled outwards through raised voices and claps. The official's expression softened further. I'll keep you all informed on the feedback we receive. You'll need to show a united front, and it looks like you're on your way to doing just that, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. As discussions continued about specifics, the warmth of possibility began to settle in Stanley's heart. He felt a collective pulse of hope that resonated through the building, a beat that seemed to promise they could not only save their community but thrive. Just then, a small voice piped up from the back. What if this is just the first step? A little girl, clinging to her mother's hand, took the chance to speak. What if we remember to always help each other, not just now? The simple sincerity drew a wave of emotional reactions, smiles and glistening eyes filling the room swell. Stanley sensed the gravity of that question. Exactly, Clara smiled, her voice trembling a bit with emotion. This isn't just about now. It's about bettering our future, the future of every child in this community. As the room buzzed with plans for the next steps, Stanley felt that energy shift again, the uncertainty dissipating under the care of commitment. But he knew, deep down, that the path ahead might bring its own challenges. They were gathering momentum, moving towards something extraordinary, but at what cost? With every heartbeat echoing with ambition, one lingering thought pushed through: what would the official really think when they faced the council again? Would their commitment to make change be enough? The next morning, the community center was alive with an electric buzz. Stanley arrived early, his heart pounding with anticipation and a hint of fear. He could already see a few families trickling in. This meeting was the start of something big, or so he hoped. He grabbed some chairs, setting them up in a semicircle, trying to create an inviting space where people could share freely. Clara arrived moments later, her arms filled with paper, markers, and paint supplies. I thought we could make some signs for the mural today, she said, her face lit up with enthusiasm. Stanley admired her spirit. She was the kind of person who could light up a room. Great idea, he replied, shifting the chairs to make space for her supplies. It'll be a tangible way to get folks involved. If they see their ideas represented, they'll feel more connected to the mural, more connected to each other. As more people filtered in, awkward glances turned into warm smiles. Neighbors greeted one another like long-lost friends, and the tension from the previous night was replaced with a shared hope. It was comforting to see the faces of those he had known for years, faces now turned towards a common goal. Do you think anyone from outside will show up? Sarah asked quietly, leaning closer as they gathered supplies. Stanley shrugged, hoping for the best. We've got to believe they will. We need to show them we care. We're not just a neighborhood, we're a family. When it was time to begin, Stanley took a deep breath and stood before the group. The chatter quieted down, and he felt all eyes on him. Thank you all for coming, he said, his voice steady. Today marks a new chapter for us. We have a chance to share our stories and lift each other up. We need to bind together and show the city who we really are, what we're made of. People nodded and whispered their agreement. Clara stepped forward and began explaining the idea behind the mural. As she outlined a rough plan, families reacted with enthusiasm, sharing their thoughts about what should be included and the vibrant colors that could represent their different cultures. Laughter and brainstorming filled the air, creating an atmosphere of creativity and hope. Midway through, an elderly man named Mr. Gonzalez raised his hand, a thoughtful look on his face. What if we wrote a letter to the city council? He suggested. A letter to go along with the mural that really speaks to who we are, the pride we have in our community. Stanley felt a wave of emotions rush over him. Yes, he exclaimed, feeling the momentum build. A letter that captures our collective voice, our history, our dreams for the future. Spurred by passion, they got to work. Groups formed, some outlining the mural while others gathered ideas for the letter. Stanley moved from one group to another, feeling the energy swirl around him. He watched as new friendships blossomed, and voices that were once quiet grew louder with purpose. As afternoon approached, Clara stopped to ask if anyone had seen the little girl who spoke the night before. "I wanted her to help paint," she said, glancing around the room. Just then, the door opened, and the girl peered in, her mother hovering nervously behind her. The sight made an undeniable wave of warmth wash over Stanley. The girl ran in, excitement bubbling in her eyes. "I want to help," she announced, quickly finding her way to Clara. The mother stood back, hesitation gripping her. Stanley recognized that look, uncertainty wrapped in genuine concern. He approached her gently. "We'd love to have her. It's all about community and support. We're stronger together." A small smile broke through her worry. "Really? It's okay for her to jump in?" "Absolutely." As the girl clung to Clara's side, a new fire ignited in Stanley's heart. This moment was what they were building toward, community wrapped tightly around every member. But he couldn't ignore the flutter of apprehension that lingered in the back of his mind. Would they really pull this off? Would their united front be enough? He looked around, the laughter and chatter uplifting yet filled with uncertainty. As they resumed their work, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The weight of their challenge loomed over him, but the warmth of their unity made it bearable. What would happen when the city council saw their mural, their letter, and all that it represented? Would it be enough to secure the future they all dreamed of, or would they face more hurdles than they could imagine? With these thoughts spiraling, Stanley continued to push ahead, knowing the answers lay just beyond their reach. The sun rose brightly the next day, filling Maplewood with a vibrant energy. Stanley stood at the front of the community center, the aroma of fresh paint mingling with anticipation in the air. They had worked tirelessly, and today was a culmination of their efforts, the day they would present their love letter to the city council and unveil their mural that spoke of unity, resilience, and hope. Families were gathered, excited chatter bubbling through the room. Kids waved their hands with paint-streaked fingers, while adults shared last-minute adjustments on the letter that would accompany the mural. Clara stood beside him, her eyes shining with purpose. "This is it, Stanley," she said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "We're sharing our heart with them." As they prepared to leave, a wave of nerves washed over Stanley. What if the council didn't understand? What if they dismissed their efforts as mere words? But looking around at the bright faces of the community, individuals who had been strangers mere weeks ago, now united by a common cause, he couldn't let doubt cloud this moment. When the group arrived at City Hall, they were met with a mix of curiosity and expectation from members of the council. Stanley stepped to the forefront, clutching the letter, feeling its weight like a promise in his hands. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Thank you for joining us today," he began, his voice ringing out clearly in the packed room. "We're here not just to share stories, but to show you who we are as Maplewood, a community bound by love and unwavering support." As he spoke, the council members shifted in their seats, their interest piqued by the raw energy radiating from the group. Clara stepped forward next, her presence commanding attention. "This mural represents our past, our struggles, and the hope we all share for a better future. It's a canvas of connection, illustrating the vibrant tapestry of our lives." One by one, the members of the community shared their stories. Sarah spoke passionately about her journey, her voice gaining strength as she detailed the kindness she had found among her neighbors. Mr. Gonzalez shared tales from his childhood, memories infused with warmth that painted the council's hearts. Children, clutching brushes, expressed their dreams through their artwork, reminding everyone present of what was at stake, their future. As stories poured out, Stanley felt a wave of emotion wash through the crowd. Hearts resonated together, forging bonds that transcended mere words. By the time they unveiled the mural, a chorus of cheers erupted in the room. The vibrant images jumped from the wall, echoing laughter and resilience, telling tales that could only be felt when experienced together. The lead council member, a stern figure with a softened gaze, stood up after witnessing the mural. "You've shown us something remarkable today," he said, his voice firm but compassionate. "This is more than a shelter, it's a home forged by community, love, and unwavering tenacity." Tears glistened in Clara's eyes. The crowd burst into applause, hearts overflowing with joy and relief. The council acknowledged their commitment and agreed to discuss plans that included permits for shelters like the one they had envisioned. They could work together to ensure safety without sacrificing compassion. As they left the building, a newfound lightness filled the air, replacing memories of heaviness. Stanley looked over at Clara and Emma, their faces glowing with excitement and tears of joy. "We did it!" Clara exclaimed. "We showed them who we really are." Stanley couldn't help but smile, a warmth radiating through him. This wasn't just a victory, it was a new beginning for Maplewood. They had transformed a small sandwich shop into a sanctuary of hope, where community, compassion, and resilience thrived. As they walked back, arms linked and laughter echoing, he realized this was about more than just sheltering Clara and Emma. It was about rekindling a spirit in Maplewood that had long been forgotten. A spark ignited within them, a shared mission that would last far beyond this one moment. In the heart of that vibrant community, Stanley felt a sense of belonging wash over him, a sense of purpose. They had created something beautiful, something strong. And now, they would continue to build together. They would support each other, uplift each other, every day moving forward. As they approached the shop now bustling with life and laughter, he turned to the group and raised his voice, filled with renewed conviction. "Let us keep this going. Let us keep creating change, together." Cheers erupted, smiles lit up faces, and joy poured out, a family bound by love, transformed through unity. Now, here's the moment you've been waiting for. You need to subscribe now. Join our journey and don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let others feel this incredible transformation. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us celebrate together, and remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share the magic of community support. Only true fans understand the importance of standing together.